Hello, thanks for joining us once again for our Talking Europe Italy special. We've come back to Genoa, to the port. Now, Italy is, of course, a country almost entirely surrounded by the sea. Its unique boot-like shape stretching far south into the Mediterranean. Well, that unique geography has also given Italy an unplanned-for role in Europe in recent years as one of the major arrival points for undocumented migrants coming across the Mediterranean by boat from North Africa. Well, the number of migrant arrivals has dramatically reduced, but migration remains a major talking point. New anti-migrant laws came into force here at the end of 2018. They were much cheered by supporters, but also sparked some peaceful protests, including one by priests who branded the laws unconstitutional and even a kind of apartheid. Well, to tell us more about these laws, Lega has been investigating.
Ciao.
Valbona made the journey from Albania to Italy 3 years ago. She was allowed to stay on humanitarian grounds and now works as a housekeeper, living in a state-funded flat share in Rome. Today, it would be impossible for someone else to take the same route. Since September, Italy has brought in new migration legislation and made savings by grouping together almost 150,000 asylum seekers in large centres.
I think these places are prisons. We were treated very badly. I would have preferred to die than to stay there.
Not far away, in Fiumicino, this centre for families with 50 residents is due to be closed down. Migrants here were able to access an integration programme with Italian lessons and social and psychological help. A quarter of the 600,000 migrants on Italian soil have obtained a so-called humanitarian visa, allowing them to live and work in the country for 2 years. But the scheme has just been scrapped.
And the risk could be that many people that have the deny of the request is to stay outside in the street.
Tougher conditions for getting a permit could force 100,000 migrants to start living and working illegally, while a new law allows for camps to be broken up and any refugee to be deported if they are deemed to be dangerous.
Then, of course, to survive, probably they'll start to working at the black market and do anything, any kind of thing. So it's crazy because it's called the security law. We think it's very insecure, first of all for the migrants and then also for the rest of the population.
I come here to work, you understand. I don't deserve to sell a drug, and I didn't do it, and I will never do it.
In polls, more than a third of people say they would vote for Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini, a twofold increase on the 2018 election result. His rhetoric has struck a chord with Italians. 2/3 say they support his migration policies.
I support Salvini's immigration law because it keeps our children safe. It's dangerous at night, so it's about our safety. And it's good for us and good for the migrants.
Unfortunately, lots of people in Italy, like in the whole of Europe, think that if we take away migrants' rights, it's a good thing for Italians.
The opposition has condemned a law they see as unconstitutional. The mayors of Naples, Palermo and Florence, all from parties not allied to the coalition, have announced a boycott. In the southwestern town of Riace, the mayor was suspended for assisting clandestine immigration. His supporters are bringing the case to the EU.
Fascism is emerging in many European countries. We are putting forward Mimo, the mayor of Riace, as a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize because he sets an example for the whole of Europe.
Italy has also drawn international attention for refusing to sign the UN Migration Pact and for closing its ports to migrants rescued in the Mediterranean Sea.
Well, the city, Genoa, has always been about people and goods moving in and out of its port. Today, around 1 in 12 Genoese are actually from a different country around the world. To pick up on that theme of migration, I'm here with another MEP from this region. Hello there, Brando Benifei.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Well, for our viewers, Brando is with the Partito Democratico, which was in government until March 2018, and is with the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament. Well, let's take a walk along the port. Yes. In terms of those new migration laws we've just been hearing about in our report, and Matteo Salvini said in 2018, these laws mean more rights for real refugees and less waste on those who aren't. What do you think of that point of view?
I have to be very blunt. In my opinion, the laws that have been approved, they are in fact to create more chaos, to resolve less problems and to have more people on the streets. We have minors and women on the streets now that are left out of the integration systems.
Why would the government be choosing to do that, though?
Because I think that who would vote for the populist and the nationalist if things are solved?
This has proved very popular with the public, who feel that they're submerged with migrants. Yeah. Do you agree with supporters of these policies that enough hasn't been done in the past?
If we look at the data, there has been more dead people in the sea, not more integration, and we have more undocumented migrants. These policies are not targeting the real issues, that is to have good integration and also to have a managed at European level migration policy.
Is that an argument that your party is putting forward, and can it win that argument?
If we just follow a nationalistic stance that we do on our own, Italy will be left with the migrants arriving from Africa and not be helped by any others, and not for sure by Orban, the best friend of Salvini.
Another huge topic for Genoa and for Italy in 2018 was that disastrous bridge collapse here in this city. We've been talking about it earlier in our programme. Now, an MEP from the Five Star Movement told us that Italian authorities have been neglecting infrastructure for many, many years, including under your party's time in government, of course. Who is to blame?
To be honest, if we look at the last decades, many political forces have been in government, and unfortunately we see that when Salvini was in government with Berlusconi at the time, they extended without real warrants on the investments the management of the present society for the highways. Obviously, I think all the political class has some degree of responsibility anyway.
Just looking at the European perspective, Italy has had an extremely rough ride over the last decade with the Eurozone crisis. It's currently seen as having a very fragile, if recovering, economy. Do you believe that this clash we've been seeing with Europe can be resolved?
Italy, for its position in the Mediterranean, for its connections with the rest of the world, it has its place at the heart of the European Union. And so we need a more efficient European Union that is able to take decisions. Today, as a member of parliament, sometimes I'm frustrated by the inability of the governments to really find a good compromise that let European agenda go forward.
Well, I'd like to continue that look to the future. Our team's been interested in how young Italians see their future, and I know you're the co-chair of the European Parliament's cross-party group on youth. Now, we're taking a particular focus on this after the French President Emmanuel Macron spoke about a clash coming up between progressives and populists, this taken as a thinly veiled reference to a clash with Italy's leaders. Well, our team has been to meet some Erasmus students from here in Italy to find out what they think about their country's future in Europe.
You could call them Generation Erasmus. Tomas is a Spaniard studying French on a European exchange program in Rome. Camilla and Carlotta are from Italy, off to the University of Strasbourg. Carlotta pursuing a Master's of Culture in European Literature. For her, Erasmus represents openness.
I think it's a great opportunity to show the other side of Europe, not just the economic or financial side, but the social, cultural Europe.
For these two friends, bridging divides is the key to a united Europe. Arriving from Bologna in September, they tried to explain the politics of their homeland to the locals.
The part that was hard for me was explaining the five-star movement.
Even for us, it's not clear.
It's a new thing, it's not a party, it's a movement. You don't really know if it's on the left or the right.
The movement may be hard to define, but it's nonetheless one half of Italy's ruling coalition. As they watch the Yellow Vest protest movement unfold in France, Camilla and Carlotta see echoes of the public mood back home.
There were all these people yelling slogans from their roofs. There were all kinds of demonstrations.
The popular rage, you mean?
And now I can see the parallels here.
The young women believe the EU itself is partly responsible, with its migration policy light on solidarity.
I'm European in principle, so to speak. But over the last 3 years, I've become more and more critical of the EU as it currently stands.
Let's just say that they could have managed things differently, because our country is not where the migrants want to stay. It's a way station.
Tomás from Spain spent 3 years at the University of Strasbourg. Now living in Rome, he sees a divide among his generation.
I'd say young people today are divided on the question. Some think Italy should remain a very nationalist country, only for Italians. But many other young people say no, we need internationalism, integration.
A student in political science, Tomás is saddened to see little public interest in the EU, with European elections approaching in May.
I'd say the European elections are still quite overlooked in the public sphere. And we don't even have the political culture to realise that we're quite integrated into a European Union. And we need to pick our representatives in it.
Yes, we always do.
Otherwise, we have no right to complain afterwards.
In the last round of European elections in 2014, turnout was 60% in Italy and just 40% in France.
Well, to continue that theme of young people, we've come here to the International Linguistic High School de Lega in Genoa. Brando Benifei is inside this classroom right now speaking to some of the students. Take a look.
Onestamente ho dovuto studiare tanto, si fa a livello universitario, ovviamente se io l'ho fatto l'Erasmus classico, quello accademico a Londra, sono dentro questo, diciamo.
Well, Brando's finished speaking to his students. Some of them have kindly stayed behind to have a word with us as well. We're joined by Bia, Giorgio and Natalie. Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, looking from the outside, it feels like there are lots of changes in Italy right now. Does that feel the same way to you, and what changes do you want to see?
The problem now in Europe is that more and more countries are thinking of the idea of leaving the European Union. The most famous example, obviously, is Britain, which has already done it, and maybe we fear that in Italy as well this choice might be made.
Has Brexit given you a different impression of the European Union, different thoughts about Europe?
Before Brexit, I was thinking of actually going to the UK to study, but I had to change my mind, and that made me think about the idea of Europe in general as well, because for the first time I realized that it's not as permanent as I thought it was.
You're all 18?
Yeah.
Are you going to be voting in the European elections?
Yes.
And, well, in that case, what do you want from Europe?
What I would really like by my vote to do concretely is, in a way, helping contrasting the movements of extreme right which are spreading in this moment in Europe. For example, as far as the immigration issue is concerned, if we don't really focus on how developing it in a pacific way, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, there should be more communication between countries. Right now, I think it's more as perceived as a fight between countries, who's doing more about migration, who's not doing anything.
Obviously, I also want my political ideas to be represented in Parliament, but in this area, I don't think that is the most important thing about our representatives. Of course, they have to share some human decency, but apart from that, they really can be from whatever party, as long as they are passionate about their job and clever people, clever, informed people.
So are you optimistic about the future for Europe?
If we young people aren't optimistic, I don't think anybody else can be it. So.
To say, well, I can't change things, everything is going to be like that, that's not the point. The point is that we can do something even though the political moments, the political ideas are not ours.
While we think, for example, at our founding father, Altiero Spinelli, whose name is big in the entrance of the European Parliament, he was optimistic in some way when he was confined in the island of Ventotene during the Second World War, and he was their age. So I think it's very important to try not to surrender to what they see and to believe in what someone thinks is important and to try to change things.
Well, thank you all very much for speaking to us. Enjoy your first voting experience in May. Thank you for watching the programme. We'll see you soon on France 24 for more European news.